Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to our last Compass session of the season. It was very pleasant summer learning series where we had a lot of knowledge sharing sessions with law, with sales, with IP, and now we have Marta Puerto Plasencia, who is going to talk to us about biodesign in healthcare. So Marta, thanks a lot for being here. Thank you everybody for being here also to listen and participate to this last summer session, Compass session, sorry. My name is Claude or Claugi for Brazilians, and we have here Chandler who will be asking also a question or helping in and out of the discussion. And well, let's start with Marta, if you want to present yourself to us, and then we can go deeper into what biodesign is. And well, you have all the floor if you want to start.
Of course. Thank you for the invitation. First of all, it's very nice to be finishing this series of events. So as Claude said, my name is Marta Puerto Plasencia. I'm originally from Spain. I started my career studying pharmacy degree, and I really liked genetics during the degree. So I started doing some research in laboratories, and I enrolled into a first master's in genetics and then another master's of science in neuroscience, all related to genetically based diseases and how we can have better therapies for genetically based diseases, as for example, cancer. So I did also my PhD in that area, in the genetic basis of cancer. And then I realized that everything that me and other colleagues were discovering was stuck into papers. So I decided to do something about it, and I wanted to maybe jump into more translational research, into something that will be closer to patients. That's why I started working in startups as a scientist, and I saw that the things that we were discovering, the therapies we were discovering, they were actually reaching the patients, and it was very nice. And at the end of this period of time working in startups, I saw that I still had some gap of knowledge regarding how to build my own company or how to help others build their own companies. Then it was when I moved to Brazil that I enrolled in this biodesign program that is especially for scientists who wants to fill this gap in between academia and industry. And it's a methodology that is extremely useful for creating new solutions in the healthcare sector. And I now teach this methodology, and I'm working as an innovation consultant at Albert Einstein Hospital in Sao Paulo, and I help other people build their own companies. So I think this is kind of a cycle that is closing. And now it makes sense. At the beginning, you do one step, another, without knowing too much why or where you will be at the end. But now it makes sense.
I totally agree. It makes it more we advance, more things start to make sense. So you've moved, if I understand well, you've moved from research labs, you went from startups, innovation labs, and you explained a little bit what drew you to biodesign. Could you speak a little bit more about what is biodesign? And as Marta and I, we were speaking before for this composition, I was writing everything design thinking in healthcare center, and Marta said, no, it's not the same. It's not the same. So it would be great if you could give a little bit more context and also the differentiators between biodesign and since we see design thinking like a brainstorming exercise most of the time. So if you could define it a little bit better in the context of health innovation, and where do you see that it makes the most impact?
So biodesign is a methodology that is based on design thinking, but it has some peculiarities to somehow apply to the healthcare sector. So the healthcare sector is highly regulated, and most of the time you have a patient at the end of your solution. The final user is a patient. So you have a lot of peculiarities that design thinking is not tackling. For example, validation of the technologies, regulation, the monitorization of the technology once it is in the markets. You always have a risk of harming a patient if something goes wrong. So you always have to take into account these risks that maybe are not present in other fields. But biodesign is mainly a process for creating new technologies or new solutions. It can be a software, it can be a drug, it can be a device. The methodology is useful for all these different type of solutions. And it was created in Stanford. Two professors of medicine and bioengineering saw that their students didn't have a methodology for innovating. And so biodesign was mainly created for unmet needs that occurs in a clinic or in a clinical setting. So at the beginning, you will have an immersion in the problem. So you are having weeks or months of experience in an hospital or experience in a clinic. And you will start observing, taking notes, and doing interviews with everyone. So you detect a problem and you go profoundly into the knowledge of this problem. So this will be the first step. And once you are the expert in the problem, you will start with the brainstorming. That is this very well-known phase for the design thinking. It's very similar to the design thinking brainstorming process, but we have some restrictions or limitations related to the regulation and the validation of the products. We have clinical assays. We have regulation with Anvisa in Brazil and with other regulatory agencies in different countries. And then you will go to the implementation phase. More or less is following the same flow as design thinking, but with some peculiarities.
Really adapted to healthcare
Mhm.
realities. Great. So could you dive a little bit deeper in how do you apply biodesign in highly complex or regulated environments, like all the systems, where the constraints can be very or feel overwhelming?
So I think that this regulatory matter that we said, the fact of you having to regulate your device before entering into the market is something that you have to emphasize from the very beginning. There are some innovators that they prefer to, for example, go into the software area. So they don't need that regulation that is harder, for example, in the biotech field, in the devices field. But even if you use a software, if the software is in contact with patients or is helping clinicians to make decisions, you even have to regulate these softwares because somehow it will affect the patients at the end. So once you have this regulatory barrier, that is one of the most difficult barriers that innovators face in the healthcare sector, then you have the behavioral barrier. So the healthcare professionals, they won't adopt a solution just because you made one. They will only adopt a solution if it makes sense in the day-by-day routine. So that is why you have to design your product always from the very beginning, taking into account this condition on this final user. And biodesign has different kind of tools for knowing your stakeholders very, very well from the very beginning. Biodesign teaches strategies to build trust, to adapt the solutions, to do a co-design of the product with the user during the design process. So at the very end, you already know the final user and you already have somehow overcome this behavioral barrier that a clinician will have, because he or she has been doing processes the same way from a long time ago. And every time you want to innovate, you have to know how your product is going to change this person's life and this person's routine. So I think biodesign is not only about the production of a solution and the regulation of a solution, but it's also getting to know the final user and including the final user in your design.
Great, that's so interesting. It's always the challenge of having incredibly new and disruptive ideas with sometimes heavy regulations that can slow you down, and knowing the complexity of patients. So I guess this must be a real challenge, especially for people who are starting to have these ideas. And well, thank you. Let's jump in a little bit in innovation. And you are mentoring students at Einstein Hospital here in Brazil. And I would like you, if you could speak to us a little bit more about this situation from early discovery all the way through prototyping. What are the key mindsets, are the methods, which you already spoke a little bit about, that help turn research into real world value?
Mm-hmm. So as you said, I have the pleasure of teaching bioengineering students at Albert Einstein faculty. So I think it's a degree that is very futuristic, because it is a mixture in between medicine and engineering. So I think it's a degree that is going to be very important. It's very important now, but is a professional. It's going to be very important in the near future. So they have all the lectures that they need about engineering, yeah, and about science, about biology and all that. But they also have entrepreneurship lessons with me. So I think most of these students, they already work with prototypes during the degree, but they don't know what to do with the prototypes, how to apply them. So what I do in my lessons is not only helping them with the prototyping and with all the biodesign process, but I think it's also about this developing the soft skills people need when they want to start a new business. So I think that there are several ways of thinking that will make you act and react in a better way to all the things that will come during a process of starting your own startup. I think one of the everything. Also, I think one of the soft skills that I try to teach is humility, because in order to listen to the patients or to the doctors or whoever is your final user, you have to have this humility, and you have to speak the same language and understand, being also empathetic, what is the problem of this person that you want to solve. And I think also persistence is a very common one that people teach, because it's not easy to start your own business. So you have to be persistent when any struggle comes. And here I wanted to speak about a book that I really like. It's called Mindsets, and it's a book from Carol Dweck, that is a psychologist from Stanford. And she wrote about two types of mindsets. So the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. So depending on your education, your culture, and how you were educated and in what context you were educated, you will think that you have a fixed mindset. So somehow your abilities are static. You were born with them. So there are people thinking that there are natural artists that they born with this ability, or natural scientists that they were born very clever, so they have these fixed mindsets. And there is the growth mindset. So is the fact of believing that every skill can be learned with effort and time. So I think that for an entrepreneur, the growth mindset makes more sense, because you are learning every single day, and you become an expert just by studying and just by making errors and start again. So I think it's a very nice book. I don't know if you have read it, Claude, but I think you are one of the growth mindset girl. And then
I will, yeah, just to say
the,
to people who will listen this session after, I will put the reference in the end of the video so that everybody can have access to it. Please keep
it's a
going.
nice book. Then there is another book that I think that also gives the students the space to somehow build the skills at home, not only in the classes. So you can read books and try to identify yourselves in the book. There is this book that is called Give and Take by Adam Grant. And mainly it shows how there are the givers and there are the takers. And finally, the givers are the ones who will success more in the long run. So it's an approach where you tend to give your time and your effort or contributing to other people. And finally, it gives you, in the long run, it gives you more results than being a taker. So I think that entrepreneur has to be a giver and has to be there trying to help others. So it's another book that I like to recommend. And finally, is a mixture of collaboration, empathy, generosity, and all these things that it doesn't matter the project, it doesn't matter the prototype that they are building, but I think those skills are very essential for succeeding in the innovation area.
Oh, that's great. Chandler, if you have a question.
Yeah, I have a question. So, talking a little bit about this mindset, Einstein has some incredible startup programs, some of the best in Brazil. And I know I'm familiar with your Eric's Bio program, but you work separately from that on internal, I think more internal incubation from faculty and professors.
Exactly.
So, you recently were promoted, by the way. So I know you were recently have a new role at Einstein, and I would love to know, there is a mindset that Einstein has about technology that I think many people recognize to be different than maybe the traditional cultural perspective that Brazilians, the institutions, have taken with innovation in the past. And I'd love to hear from you how you see this mindset transcending from this different ethos, this different mindset about innovation, and what then makes that successful, because I think there's plenty of success cases of how Einstein is different in how they are successful. And so I don't know, that's a big question, but I think you understand what I'm asking.
I think it's a complex matter because one of the first things that comes to my mind is investment. So not every institution in Brazil has the same degree of freedom for investing in innovation. So first thing that you do when you have some kind of money for innovation is doing open innovation, taking ideas from the outside and incubating them. So taking startups from the outside, helping the startups grow. And if you think that the startup will make some value for your company, you finally absorb the startup. But when you have a little more long-term vision and a little bit more possibilities of investing, I think you start developing your own ideas. So we have an internal program that anybody from the institution can submit an idea. Anybody is from a doctor, nurse, student, researcher, any person in the administration can submit an idea or even a problem, and there is a full area in the innovation department that will try to help this collaborator to develop a solution for this problem. So it's a way of somehow looking at the problems in your own institution and trying to develop solutions that will make your institution succeed. So I think for that, you need a lot of human force, because we are, I think, around 130 people in the innovation department at Einstein. And usually the number is lower than that. So I think that we have every step of the process. So we have the open innovation, but we also have our own laboratories for experimentation. We have designers, we have engineers, we have business people. We also have a venture building department. So anything that we develop inside, we can also try to put that in the market. So I think we are advanced in a way that
studio.
what?
You're a studio, basically, and
Yeah.
You centralize all of those functions for the teams that you're working with, and you have very specific resources that are dedicated to each one.
Exactly. And also we have specialists in each of these areas that also makes everything more like successful. So we also have this richness in the people that work within the area, because we have people that come from the science world, but also, as I mentioned, we have designers, engineers, UX experience experts. So a little bit of everything you need for creating a solution from zero and putting it in the market. And I think that was a long process that has been built within the time. I'm just working there I was working there for the last 2 years, but they have a long story of creating all this ecosystem, because it's not an innovation department. I think it's an ecosystem, because we have the research laboratories, we have the innovation department, the hospital, and then the faculty, and everything is interconnected. So everything is nourishing, every area is nourishing the other area. So the students are coming to the innovation department, and then the doctors are being trained in entrepreneurship. And then everyone knows a little bit about processes like design thinking, biodesign, and other methods for designing solutions. So everyone knows a little bit about innovation and has an idea about what innovation is. It's also a culture, I think, that has been spread all over the years. And it makes a difference, I think.
And I guess this goes back to the soft skills you were speaking about. You need to get out of the technical skills to be able to try and communicate with people who don't have the same clinical and technical skills that you do. And this goes beyond an experiment or clinical trial. And I think the world slowly, or the people are starting to get out of working in silos inside of the institutions and building these cultures of innovation. Mindset is super important for progress. And well, let's speak of progress, and let's speak of getting stuck a little bit, because everybody once faced having great ideas, and at some point when you start thinking, you get stuck between the identification of a problem and really designing a viable solution, or spend so much time in problems that you understand them so much that you forget about the solutions in itself, and vice versa. So how do you help and how do you support researchers, innovators, students to move forward when they get stuck in this identification of problem and design?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that we put a lot of efforts on getting to know your final user and getting to know the need behind the problems. So we think that if you become an expert on the problem, you can iterate on the solution, and then you can maybe go back and forth until you find the correct solution. But still the problem is gonna be the same in all the process. It's not gonna change. So we stay like most of half of the time of the total time of the process of innovating. We have half of the time we will be only focusing on the problem, still not speaking about solutions. doing qualitative research, quantitative research, doing all these interrogations of the different stakeholders that are related to the problem, not only the user, but for example, if we have a pediatric patient, we will get to know the patient and the family and the doctors and the nurse, and then the public system, if this person is attended in the public system or the private system is attended at the private system. You have to get to know every stakeholder that can influence your solution. And then you can be more secure about going into the brainstorming process and going into the prototyping. I think there is a step where students or innovators tend to get stuck, that is passing from an idea to a prototype. So I think that I usually use this how might we technique, that is how might we solve a specific part of the problem instead of wanting to do one solution for all. So you kind of split into questions the prototyping process, and you try to solve step by step. And it usually helps students to understand better the prototyping process. And we do several how might we questions, and they start prototyping for every question, you know. And I think another part where they get stuck is the validation. So for example, we have a prototype that is very nice in the maker lab, you know, it looks very, very nice, but whenever you try with the first dummies or with the first animal models, it doesn't work as you expected, and it's completely normal because the animal models are very different from, you know, theory or from dummies. And even when you pass from an animal to a human, it's also a very difficult step for validation, because the models are very complicated. You know, human beings or in general, any model that is alive is very difficult related to other sectors or areas where you can prototype, you know. So what we try to do is just reinforcing that you have to iterate, coming back to the lab. Everything that you learn from your validation process, you come back, but you don't come back with empty hands, because you already learned a lot from this validation. And then you go back and you redesign and redesign and redesign forever until your prototype works. And then I think I will say another point that is critical, I think, is market knowledge, because I think sometimes people who study science or study medicine or any field related with health, we are not trained to study the market, to study business models, to study, you know, what the other companies are doing. How can I differentiate myself from the other companies? So I usually help the students doing a gap analysis. So we put into a map all the companies that are in the same field of the solutions that we are creating. And we try to identify the gap, the thing that these companies are still not doing well, the thing that these companies still are not, you know, they are not making the client happy, or they are not meeting the need. So we try to identify the gap so we can at least know our competitors, know the characteristics of our market, and innovate in a field that we have more probabilities of success.
And bringing people from business is actually very
True,
helpful.
exactly. As you say, Claude, I think innovation is a multidisciplinary task. So we not only need experts in our group, we will need business people, people from marketing, communication. Not everyone that knows how to communicate to another expert knows how to communicate to a person that doesn't know anything about the project, you know? And I think when you are very, you need all this interdisciplinarity if you want to be successful.
And with 360, we work a lot with people that are specialists and searchers and they are not supposed to know how to do the commercialization of their product or invention. And I think this is very important also when you speak of humility, for the researchers to understand that they cannot do it all, even though
Exactly.
it's their idea. There are
Sí.
specializations.
Fantastic.
And yes, I heard a lot that science and innovation was 95% frustration for 5% of satisfaction. So I guess as a young researcher, you really have to learn patience and to learn that if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And it must be very interesting and very fascinating to see the progression in the soft skills of the people that you support, and learning patience is something that sometimes people at 20 or 30, or sometimes it needs a whole life to learn to do, right? That's very interesting. Before we keep going, I would like to know if some people would have any questions.
I do. I have a question. Hey, sorry, my camera was off. Hi, Marta. First of all, nice to meet you. I have a question regarding this specific topic. And well, I'm from Porto Alegre, and I can't say for here, I don't know about the rest of Brazil as of this topic, but how do you feel that the future of integrating studies in the academic universe with the business universe can have a positive impact on bringing more innovation to Brazil?
So nice question. Thank you. I think that we need to start teaching some skills from the very young age, in the universities. I think entrepreneurship is something that everybody should have some knowledge on. And I think, for example, I was working in the US for a period of time, and from my perspective, I think that, for example, they are teaching entrepreneurial skills from a very young age there, and they are more used to risk taking. And so the culture is already used to people trying to open their own businesses. And then I think it also makes easier for someone to, start something new instead of being hired by a big company or so. So I think that if we start giving lessons to the students, we won't need to maybe wait until the MBA to come. That is usually something that we do when we already have, I don't know, 30 or 40 years old. And we have this gap of knowledge in business, and then we pay this huge amount of money on an MBA. And not everybody will have this money to do this kind of studies. So I think we have to do it very early on. We have to start teaching to students this kind of skills that even if you don't start your startup, if you don't do anything related with creating new solutions, these skills are very useful for any work you do in the future.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And I would go further. I think it should be even earlier, maybe even in high school, introducing those topics. It would be very good so that everyone goes into university with entrepreneurship mentality. I think that would be really good.
And there is this debate about technical degrees, that they lose a little bit of prestige, I think, when you compare with a full university academic degree. So I think that technical studies should be valorated too. So there are some people that maybe that just want to be very technical from the very beginning. So they can go in this technical school and be very good at something, at creating something simple. And I think we also have to give people the opportunity of doing alternative studies, alternative to a classical degree in university. And as you say, maybe we start teaching in the schools about other opportunities of careers. People maybe will start doing entrepreneurship before going to the university, or will start with a technical formation before going to the university. So whenever you go to the university, you already know very well what you want to do. I think I was one day speaking with Claude, and if I'm not wrong, in some countries you have a sabbatic year in order to get to know what you really want to do in university as a study. And some people will start maybe doing some opening some business instead of going to the university because they had a full year to think about it. So I think we have to give more options for the people.
I agree 100%.
Thank you, Felipe, for your question. So let's speak. Marta, you've worked and lived in Spain, in France, in Brazil, even in the US and more. So you have a pretty nice landscape or view of how things are going here and there. And I would like to know what are some of the cultural or systemic differences, which we had, by the way, the chance to speak a lot with Christina last week, and I'm very happy that Christy can be here today. Feel free, Christy, if you want to jump in later. So some differences that you've noticed in how innovation is approached across different contexts. And actually, the question of Felipe makes a lot of sense in this, as it's a cultural approach to about progress and innovation.
So I think that each context will bring a unique perspective that also depends on your point of view, on who is the observer. So from my experience, I try to avoid generalizations, but I think that the way innovators face entrepreneurship is different in between countries, maybe because all the things that we spoke about, education. From my perspective in the US, I think that people are trained from a very young age on entrepreneurship, and they are most used to risk-taking. So trying, failing is not a problem, it's part of the process. So I think this shapes how innovation is approached. And maybe Europe is more conservative. I know that now we have more and more people taking the risk of opening a business, but we never had. I was graduated in Spain, so we never had any kind of class or any kind of seminar even about entrepreneurship. So I didn't have any contacts until I was, I don't know, 25 or 26. And I think we are more conservative in terms of risk. And at the same time, in Europe, we have these very nice public healthcare systems that are very interesting places to put your innovation on, to also try to innovate. It's very different from the public system, but it's very rich that we have both options for the entrepreneurs to enter into the public or the private system. And then I think, speaking now about Brazil, I think I was very surprised. So I didn't know what to expect in terms of innovation, but I think they are extremely creative, and with very low resources, they build very interesting things. So I think Brazil is very underrated, and it's not only about the creativity and the resilience, but it's also about how nice people are and how easy it is to work in teams, something that is very important if you are an entrepreneur, and how easy it is to communicate here. So I think they are very open-minded people, and I have feel very welcome here as a worker. So I think I had the opportunity of working in a very nice atmosphere at Einstein, and I didn't feel the difference. I mean, I didn't feel as a stranger. So this helps a lot you to be involved in projects and be involved in even teaching to students. I think it's very interesting how open-minded they are. And in the end, I think that I have learned that there is no one size fits all model for innovation. So I think that every time you want to build something in a new country, you have to get to know the context, the culture, the people. You have to go there in the field, speak with the people, understand the problem. Because a solution that works, I don't know, in the neighbor country is not going to work in this country just because they have some characteristics in common. So I think this is also very interesting. You have to kind of start from zero every time you go into a new country and be, as you said, Claude, have the humility of listening to the people you want to help.
Yes, it's true. Observing, and it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of I say, being myself an immigrant in Brazil, you really have to reboot your brain. Everything you thought you knew about social codes, and it's so subtle that sometimes, and every week you learn something new. You face, oh, that's how things happen here. Oh, I didn't know. And you also have to be ready to make mistakes, sometimes that are not technical mistakes, but social mistakes in a way, I think. So thank you so much, Christy. There is Cloud also that I know that are familiar to these realities of being an entrepreneur in other countries. If you feel like sharing any stories, any realities, please, you are welcome.
I was just so smiling as Marta was explaining all the, different countries and contexts and, doing the same thing, but in a different environment affects the project and the people. And especially when you said with Brazil, the very limited resources, they can make so much. And I feel like sometimes we undervalue the pressure. Okay, let me phrase it this way. We undervalue how much need we have for pressure to perform. So let me put it this way. So when you have a deadline and you are close to it, you are pressured. You're going to do everything you can. So it's kind of the same what I observed in West Africa, living there and working there for like a decade now. I mean, well, I no longer live there, but I still have an NGO there, so business incubator. So basically, I feel like sometimes you mentioned, Marta, that scientists, the brain works differently for a scientist, right? I studied business since I was 14. My brain works very differently than the people who do science and technology and technical things. And the things that you do is very, I feel like it's very straightforward, and I probably am very wrong, but it's more straightforward than the business world because you have inputs and you have outcomes and you kind of can predict it, right? You can calculate that I put in this and I will take out that when it comes to building. So if I put together two tools or two, parts, it will become something, right? But in business, you can try something and you will be like, it's gonna work. You theorize around it. The theory is like, it's gonna work. And then you start doing it. It's like, wait, hang on a minute. I need to stir away from this to a different direction. And then that is very uncomfortable when we do that. In real life, the journey takes you up and down, left and right, and you are just finding yourself in situations like, and that's business, that's the business world. And that's the thing that we need to get very used to. So I have a question actually behind this. Yeah. So the pressure thing and the navigating this uncertainty in business, because business is, I feel like, is the most uncertain thing in the world to do business. You put in a lot of effort, especially when you start, and then there is no no result in the end. Like you're just putting the efforts and then you're like, wait, I thought 1 + 1 is 2. Like what's going on? Like why I'm not getting the 2? Where is it? So how do you navigate that with the people you mentor? Like, so how do you shift their mind into business to be comfortable with the uncertainty, and how do you kind of pressurize them a little bit? Is there anything that you like you use as a technique? So this is basically, it was a long intro for my question, but I'm very interested to learn.
So what I have experienced is that maybe the students will not open their first business just after they finish their degree, but then they will try into a more regular job, and at some point they will have the maturity to start their own business. And maybe everything that they learn working in this other more protector style will be also useful for the solo career. And what I have seen here is that most of the people who start their own business, they still have another side job to kind of mitigate the risk and have a salary coming every month until the business has the insights, has the signals for you to decide to go 100% with the business. I don't know if this is something related with the country or it's cultural, but I see it very often. So it's a lot of pressure to have your own work and to have to perform in front of your superiors, and then in your spare time building your own company. So I think it's a tough path, but I think there are some people who is what they dream about and what they like doing. They like to be their own boss. They like to build their own things. They like to, they are very connected to the third time problem. So they want to solve it. They want to build something to solve the problem. And then, yeah, it comes with a lot of responsibility, pressure, and yeah, it's not an easy path. But there are some students who wants to do it, and then we prepare them to do it in the smoothest way.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it, that, there are some people who are very self-driven and they're connected to the problem itself. And I always say, because I also do business consultation, so I always say that you need to connect. You can't run something that you are personally not connected to. Like you can't start a business doing stuff that maybe you are good at, but you don't have your heart is not in it, because as a business, if you want to do business, you have to be deeply connected to that. Otherwise, the energy will run out. It's not going to turn into constantly, like, look at Chandler, man. Honestly, like the amount of effort that he puts into everything he does, and he continues regardless of the obstacles. And that's entrepreneurship, that, circumstances change and you need to adapt, but then obstacles come, you need to climb over it. Crashes you, but then you stand up. Like, these are the things that I think we learn in business schools, not by the knowledge and the information they give to us. It's more about the, I don't know how I picked it up, but more about like trialing and project management and all this. You do these kind of things and you grow into it, basically. So yeah, it's a very interesting thing to shift someone, because I might be wrong, but I'm thinking of scientists, like their mind works in a very linear way, like 1 + 1 is 2. So like, and in entrepreneurship, 1 + 1 could be sometimes 200. Like, honestly, it's such an unpredictable life form to be an entrepreneur and be a business person. So do you have businesses, Marta? That's my next question.
If I
Do you have any business yourself? Like, do you have a side hustle? Because you have your main job, but do you have also...
Nowadays I'm starting a business with a colleague in Spain. It's a fintech, and it's very, very in the first, even in the idealization step, but I'm very connected with the problem. So it's about women's mental health. And I decided that it was the moment. So I do that in the spare time that I have after work. But somehow, as you said, if you are connected with the problem and you are connected with the people with who you work, I think it gives you a satisfaction that worth everything that you also have to, deny. So yeah, you have to be connected with the problem for sure.
I'm very curious to know, Marta, if you agree, or you also perceive that scientists have a more linear mind?
I think that we are teaching a way that mathematics, chemistry, physics are subjects that are more based on statistics and in probability. So yeah, we kind of learn how to, be quantitative. When I started working as an innovation consultant, I had to be more qualitative. And it was a shift, speaking about human behavior, speaking about people needs, speaking about, how people will adopt or not a solution. It was something very unpredictable, as Christina says. So I think there are patterns also that you can identify on people behaviors, on people trying to solve their problems. So somehow everyone wants to be happy, healthy, and have tools that make their people easier. So you always have some principles there on how people behave, but then into the specificities of putting a solution into the markets, quantitative is not longer that useful as qualitative.
Thank you. Very interesting. Thank you, Christy, for your question and comment. So that brings us, oh, yes, please, Cloud, if you would like to add anything.
Yeah. So firstly, thank you so much for the insightful talk. And I really appreciated like how you frame the biodesign work and healthcare design, not just as a technical pipeline, but also a human-centered journey from the discovery to the deployment. And also like thank you, Cloud, amazing moderation. I really appreciate how you how the space for both dApps and worms in this session. So I am Cloud. So the innovation strategy at Swiss 60, and also I am the entrepreneur currently leading a healthcare innovation project based in North America, also with the distributed teams in China. So a lot of what we do start from the scratch, building from 0 to 1. And but what stay consistent is a design thinking, like listen to users and understanding context, and designing in ways that are context aware and behaviorally grounded. So my work involved the wearable and re-app focus system. And one challenge I continue to face is stakeholder activation. So I think you mentioned before, but how to bring the energy and long-term commitment from the re-app center directors, clinical staff, and also the user themselves. So my first question is, when working with this complex health ecosystem, how do you keep the stakeholder engaged, and not just during the early co-design, but throughout the long-term deployment and behavior change?
So I think it really depends also on the representatives you have in your company to speak with the final user. So for example, if I'm innovating in cardiorespiratory field, I will probably have an expert who is a doctor on that field that will communicate with the final users. So I think this gives credibility, and you have to have always a line of contacts once you launch your solution to solve anything that came from, you know, using it and remodeling and redesigning in order to try to personalize somehow the solution to the different users you have. And we always have these advisors, these intermediators that are experts and they are key opinion leaders on certain fields, because we think that it also helps with all the implementation process and all the monetization of the use of the new solution in time. I think you need to have some names in your company if you want it to have credibility.
Okay. Makes sense. Thank you. Also, like a small follow-up, like especially for those of us in the early stage or founders roles, we often don't just manage the stakeholders, and also we need to like find and build the new relationship with the stakeholders from the ground up. So have you had any experience with the long-term stakeholder development and how to keep the momentum when you are still building this relationship from their role? So yeah.
I think at Einstein, we have had some exits of some companies that were mainly software. We have not had still the time to build a biotech or a device that was like successful for a long time until the exit came. I think there's still time to see how these kind of innovations are fitting in the markets. I think for softwares it's easier. So we have these customer service people that are solving every time the clients have some doubts, and we somehow personalize the software as much as we can for the clients. And I think that with softwares it's easier. I don't have the experience still with a device or a biotech solution, but I think that is more challenging to maintain the clients, you know, excited in the long run. So we still have some time at Einstein to see what happened with this kind of solutions.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for
Thank you
your
so much.
yeah.
Thank you. We have to wrap up now. So, Marta, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for everybody for participating. Really, it's a pleasure to speak with you, everybody. And I would like to ask you for final advice, Marta, if you could wrap all your experiences in invention, teaching, science, research, and wrap that in one piece of advice that you would give to apply biodesign to build some solutions that are relevant and resilient.
So I think I will say, again, focus on people needs and focus on producing something or creating something that is based on a need that is not yet meets. So I think that creating technology only because we can is not a very intelligent way of innovating. So yeah, I will say that. And probably try to surround myself by very talented people. So if you want to innovate and you want your innovation to be successful, I think you have to hire people or be around people that are clever than you or that have skills that you don't really have, because you cannot be, oh, as we mentioned, you cannot be the scientist and then the communicator and then the business expert and then, you know. So yeah, I will say try to surround yourself by people that are good at what they do.
Thank you, Marta. So this is the closing word on our summer learning series with 360 Social Impact Studios. All the recordings will soon be available on the website. and to watch again. And we will keep you in touch for further Compass sessions. So thank you, everybody. And we wish you all a good end of day.
Thanks so much,
Thank you for the
everybody.
invitation. And thank you for the
Everybody.
kind conduction, Claude, and for the invitation,
welcome.
Chamle.
Absolutely.